Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good night. Everything else is all good, as we like to say. My name is Jason Weiss. I am the host of the Ask Jason Weiss show. I am an attorney. I am a coach. I am a consultant. I am now a Florida certified mediator. And I am happy to announce that everybody knows that's been listening for 2024. I am a published and best-selling author. So I need to put my disclaimer out here today, as always, that although I am an attorney, nothing discussed today constitutes legal advice. Should you need legal advice, financial advice, life advice, whatever it is, go consult an attorney or a professional or somebody and listen to them. I'm just here for generic guidance, entertainment, fun, and for spreading the word about podcasting and great things. So with all of that said, today I have a wonderful guest whose name is Terry Tucker. Now, unlike a lot of the guests that I've had in the past where I say I've known, all these people for years and years and years, Terry is somebody who I met on a phenomenal website called matchmaker.fm. F is in Frank, M is in Mary, where it is people that are in the podcast community that they want to share and they want to get their message out. Now, admittedly, I've been contacted by a handful of people, but Terry's was great. Terry talks about motivation, and that's why we have the show today called Motivational Check. So Terry is here to motivate you, to answer questions, to fill things in, to tell his story, and is just a breath of fresh air. So without any further ado, we have Terry Tucker, who is here, and all of his contact information will be there. And he is a speaker and an author. That's the other thing I got. Authors got to stick together. So motivationalcheck.com. Check that out. Motivationalcheck.com. And you can also find him at motivationalcheck@aol.com, which it's funny, Terry, we're going to start here. I thought I was the only person on the planet who still has an AOL address.
No, I love having AOL. It's old school. I like old school in that. So
it's an icebreaker, right? Oh my God. We're the only two people.
AOL, is that still even around?
We're the only two people on the planet with an AOL account. Oh my God. We're keeping that company can't close up because of me and Terry. All right. So Terry, let the audience know where you are, where you're based out of in the United States, and then tell us a little bit about your backdrop and your backstory, and motivate us to want to give you a call and reach out to you. So Terry, floor is yours, dude.
Thank you, Jason. I'm really excited to be here with you today and have this conversation with you. I am currently located in Denver, Colorado. A little bit of background for me. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from my voice or from looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall, and actually went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on a basketball scholarship. After I graduated from college, I was actually the first person in my family to graduate from college. I moved home to find a job, and Jason, I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment. Fortunately, I found that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news.
Did you ever get to meet Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's?
Many times.
That's really cool. That's it. Folks, this guy's met Dave Thomas. Enough said, right? So, all right.
So we're right now, right? We're done.
Right. So, all right. So you were flipping burgers at Wendy's.
Well, I wasn't flipping burgers. I was working in the marketing department. But one week out of the year, we did go and work in the stores, because they always felt that if you were going to, market something, you had to understand how it worked. So yes, I did flip burgers for 1 week every year.
Let me stop you there.
Sure.
I love that philosophy. I love that. And I'm gonna when I bring people on to join my team, they get trained on everything from e-filing, which attorneys know that's basically you file it online, you do it yourself. I'll admit 90% of my filing is done with the assistance of my paralegal. She handles it all. But if she wants to take a vacation, if it's 9 o'clock at night, if it's an emergency, if I can't get through, I need to know how to do it. So I love that, and especially that you said that you went in 1 week a year, because how can I tell you, hey, I want to sell you this beverage that I'm drinking and all of that. Well, how's it taste? I don't know. It tastes like, or how does it smell, or how does it store, or how does it ship? So talk about that for a minute. About you got your hands dirty and got in, right? That's awesome. And we don't do that enough.
Well, and my dad was the national director of real estate for McDonald's, so the competitor of Wendy's. And McDonald's is famous for their what they called Hamburger University, where they would bring in franchisees and company store operators and teach them every aspect of the business, how to buy equipment, how the hamburgers should be cooked, how the French fries should, everything. You learned everything. And that's why McDonald's was so successful, because they set you up to be successful. They didn't just say, here's a restaurant, good luck, hope you work it out. They trained people. And it was incredibly important for us, especially when I started out in field marketing and I moved to new product marketing at Wendy's, to understand, well, for every piece of equipment we put in the store, for every new product we put in the store, we're going to cannibalize another product. So if you go into Wendy's and order a chicken sandwich, well, then you didn't order a hamburger, or vice versa. So you had to understand how the store operated. And that was just great opportunity for us to understand how things worked within the store. Because a lot of times, you know how it is when you're sitting in an office thousands of miles away from a store, you're like, well, what's this guy doing? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing that? That's not setting people up for success.
And the funny thing is, with COVID and everything, and we all went remote, right? I went to court for the first time in person, probably in 2 years, last month. And it was weird. And, the gentleman that works with me, he's been in court a handful of times, but there are attorneys out there that are trial attorneys. I actually had lunch with one, and she told me the other day, she's like, I've been practicing law since 2019. I've never been inside a courtroom. And you're a litigator? Yeah. Blew my mind.
It is amazing. I mean, I loved going to court when I was a police officer. That's one of the jobs I had. I was a Cincinnati police officer. I loved going to court. I loved understanding the law and, knowing, I've got you, and just kind of pitting myself against the opposing counsel. And it's like, what are you going to say? What are you going to bring up? How are you going to try to get your client out of it? I love that.
Look, I'm going to admit, the passion to going to court is not what it used to be for me. I mean, I'm practicing law 24 years. My first, 15 years, I loved it. I wanted in, I wanted that. Now that I'm doing a lot of managerial stuff and a lot of transactional stuff, when I'm in court, it takes away time. So I don't like it anymore. All right. So we go from Wendy's, we're flipping hamburgers only on once a year, to then, I'm assuming, because we heard that you were a police officer, somehow you continued down. So Wendy's, you close that chapter. Now what?
So the good news was, when I got out of college, I got that job at Wendy's. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. So my second job was I went to work for the hospital that actually cared for my father and my grandmother as they were dying. So that was, I felt they just did an incredibly great job. I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be sort of more in the service aspect of it. And so I did that. And then I made the major pivot in my life at 37 and became a rookie police officer with the city of Cincinnati.
And is that what you still do today?
I don't. I did that for almost 10 years. My wife had met me, and we got married when I was in hospital administration. And you can imagine the conversation that one night of, hey, I want to be a police officer. I want to go work nights. I want to get shot at. I want to do all this other kind of stuff. And she was incredibly supportive of me doing that. And unfortunately, she lost her job. She is the primary breadwinner. So I had to get out of law enforcement early 2000s. And we moved to Houston, Texas, where she found another job. And I started a school security consulting business. And I coached girls high school basketball.
So tell us a little bit about your school security consulting business. And then I want to figure out how that transitions into where you're sitting with your motivational speaking and all of that. So tell us a little bit about your security company. I am from South Florida. I went to Douglas High School, so that lets you know that school security is near and dear to my heart. My kids were supposed to go there, but we actually moved further north, so they're not zoned for that. But tell us a little bit about the school security, and tell us how you got into the motivational speaking and coaching and writing. I think, I'm guessing, this isn't pre-scripted, I'm guessing they intertwine, but if not, then you'll take them separately.
Sure. So I had certain skills. I had education. I actually went to law school. I did not finish. I got about halfway through law school. I had all my training as a police officer. I was on the SWAT team, so I had that training. And our daughter was at a private school when we lived in Texas, and it was wide open. I mean, you could walk in at any time. It was, it was the time when people were starting to shoot up schools and things like that. So I went to the principal and I said, hey, look, I'll do gratis for you a school security consulting. I'll check your school for where you're accessible. I'll write your policies and procedures. I'll train your staff. And they went for that. And so that led then to starting the business. I really had no idea I was going to start a business, but they started recommending me to other schools. And so I was like, sure. And so I put a business together and I did that. And as I mentioned, and I also coach girls high school basketball. So it was nice being your own boss. You could kind of ramp things up in the off season and then kind of ramp the business down a little bit during basketball season, because I love basketball and I really enjoyed coaching. So I was able to do both of those. But it was about the time I was coaching that unfortunately I developed a very rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma that has seen my foot amputated in 2018, my leg amputated in 2020, and I still have tumors in my lungs, which I'm being treated for. So I needed something to do. And starting a speaking business, writing books and things like that was just a natural progression to allow me to do stuff during the 2 weeks that I'm off of treatment. And then that week when I'm being treated for those tumors in my lungs, I really don't do anything. I'm at the hospital all week. So this is more purposeful for me now and allows me to do things since I don't have a leg and I'm in a wheelchair.
So, yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I've done throughout my career is I was an advocate for people with physical disabilities and, access and all of that. And it's funny because I've gotten emails and texts from buddies of mine. One of my buddies is actually, he's doing a test run with one or two of the airlines with new seating that is being designed for people with wheelchairs and all of that. And another friend of mine actually texted me yesterday saying, hey, I'm getting ready to go to the hotel in blah, blah, blah state. And they have a pool lift installed. Thank you. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like I did that. And I love hearing, how I'm able to help. Some people don't like the fact that I do that. So, and just, but it's great. Motivational speaking. So, I mean, between the cancer in your lungs and your leg, and I mean, I didn't know any of this. That's, I did read and I knew some, but I mean, it's incredible. How you're doing that and how you're fighting the fight. And I love that. So tell us a little bit about, what your motivational, obviously I know what your motivation is, but how do you motivate others?
Yeah, it's funny. I start this motivational speaking business and then COVID hits. And so it was like, well, like so many other quote unquote businesses, I got to figure out a different way to deliver my message. And a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And I said, sure. What's a podcast? Honestly, Jason, I had no idea what a podcast was or anything like that. And so I ended up, he told me, I said, sure. And Jason, the first time I did a podcast, I was horrible. I provided no value whatsoever. I had Post-it notes all around the camera. he would ask me a question, and I kind of lean in and read the post. It was horrible, but I enjoyed it. And I thought in my life, the first time I did anything, first time I played basketball, I really wasn't good at it. First time I drove a car, I wasn't very good at it. First time I cooked a meal, I think I burned the water. I just I wasn't good at that. But the more I practiced, and I remember talking to my publisher, I said, Scott, I listen to every podcast I've been on. And I've been on probably over 700 podcasts around the world. And I said, I want to be good. He said, no, Terry, it's not about being good. It's just about not sucking. And I said, well, thanks for the title of my next book, Just Don't Suck. But it's like, no, that's not going to be the title. I said, no, I want to provide value. I want to make people feel better and things like that. So somebody said, hey, you should start to speak. And I was initially, I don't want to speak. I mean, who cares about me? I'm not anybody special. Why would people want to hear my story? But so many people think their life doesn't matter. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, if I may.
Please.
So
I think just see if you can lower the volume a little bit. I think the studio is saying that they're getting a little bit of feedback. And I want to hear your story loud and clear. No pun intended.
I understand. Is that any better?
We'll see. Just keep an eye on the notes. But yeah, from my side, it's good.
Okay. So one of the nurses who had taken care of me initially, a very young nurse, about 25, was already a nurse, but was learning how to do things on the unit where I'm treated. And about 6 months later, she's taking care of me on her own. And she comes in and she says, Terry, I want to tell you a story, but I'm a little uncomfortable telling it to you. And Jason, I didn't know how to respond to that. It's like, well, I hope you decide you want to tell me. I think I'd enjoy it. So she's in and out for the next couple hours, and then finally comes in, sits down, and says, all right, here's the story. She said, when I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I'd had a very good friend of mine die. I was in a really dark place. I talked to my family. I was going to quit nursing, and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And she said, and then I met you. And I see what you go through your treatments. I see how your body reacts, and I have a really bad reaction. And she said, then I went back in your file, and I read everything that you'd experienced over this 12-year journey. And she said, when I finished reading your story, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had no idea that my life had such a positive impact on her. I guarantee your audience, there are people out there that are watching how you deal with your adversity in life, watching the courage that you put forward, and would give almost everything they have just to walk 5 minutes in your shoes. So I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care how bad things are in your life. I can promise you your life is motivating another person to live their best life as well.
And I love that. I think, like when we talk about adversity and we talk about this, it's easy for me to say, if I were in your shoes, I would do this or I would do that. And, it's, for me, it is, look, I've gone through this, right? As a lawyer, right? What do we all fear? We fear a client not paying. We fear a judge sanctioning us. We fear, a dispute with a client. When you've done that, I can talk about it because I've dealt with all of that. When I was 2 years out of school, what do I know? All I know about is writing and getting my time chopped. So it's all about that and all about the perspective, because you don't know, someone might not be suffering from the same form of cancer that you're suffering from, but maybe they had to have a limb amputated because of an accident. Maybe they had to do this. So there are so many, I don't want to say boxes that you check, but there are so many columns that you can go down because you've experienced so much. And it would allow somebody like me to say, like maybe losing in court yesterday wasn't that big a deal. Look what Terry's going through. Or maybe, oh my God, Terry would be great to talk to my mom who just suffered a loss or something like that. So I think opening up and telling your story is huge. And that's what people need. Sometimes it's not the motivation that they need. They just need to understand that someone else can relate. And I think that's huge as a relatable person. Look, 6'8", former athlete to someone who is now, fighting, every handful of weeks in treatments, it just shows the fighter you are. My son's going through the lacrosse recruiting process. And the one thing that all of the coaches have said to my son is, when we told you were too slow, you got faster. When we told you needed to improve your lacrosse IQ, you improved it. When we told you needed to do this, you did it. And that's my son's strongest point right now. He is tremendously grown as a person and an athlete, and he's still in the recruiting process. We got another couple of weeks. Hopefully I'll be making an announcement soon where he's going, but it is what it is. So here's what I want to do, Terry. We're going to break for a quick commercial. And then we're going to come back and we're going to pick up right where we left off, that, you motivated this young lady, this nurse, to stay on as a nurse. And then I want to talk about your book, and I want to talk about how people can reach out to you and get motivated by you. So we're going to do a quick commercial. Thank you for our sponsor, and we'll be back in about a minute. Like I said, we would be back quick. This is Jason Weiss, the Ask Jason Weiss show. Although I am an attorney, nothing here constitutes legal advice. This is just great fun and banter, and that's what we call it here. And we are trying to get you motivated, a motivational check. And we have Terry Tucker here with me, who he got to the point where he is now doing some consulting for schools. He is coaching girls high school basketball, and he is also an author. So Terry, tell us a little bit about your book, where people can get it, what motivated you to write it, and a quick synopsis of what it's about.
Sure. So I never in my life did I ever expect to write a book. I never felt I was a writer. And there's sort of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God never reached out and said, hey, Terry, you should write a book. But I think what God did was put enough people in my path that started to make the same suggestion. Hey, Terry, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And the book is called Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. You can get it anywhere. You can get a book online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, wherever you get your books online. And the book was really born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former player that I had coached in high school who'd moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And Jason, she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth. And there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me on social media from college. And he said, what do you think are the most important things I should learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life? And I didn't want to give him the cliches, get up early, work hard, help. I didn't want to give him all that. And so I took some time and started writing some notes, and eventually had these 10 ideas, these 10 thoughts, these 10 principles. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle. Or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So literally during the 4 to 5 month period where I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how Sustainable Excellence came to be.
And so it's Sustainable Excellence. You can find it on Amazon or anybody else. Is it on Audible?
It is not on Audible. And that's one of the things I've really struggled with. Should I do an audio? You know, they say men love audiobooks, women like more the hard, you know, I want to have the book. So I've struggled with that. I have not put it on audio yet, though.
Yeah, I put my book on Audible, and I loved it. You know, so let's see. It said they're still getting the feedback a little bit. So they want to lower your volume a little bit more when you can. So let's lower the volume. Maybe it's because, you know, you're such a tall and powering and
I do have a large,
you're a large guy. So you know, so what do you tell what do you tell people that they come to you and it's like, you know, Terry, look, you know, oh my God, you know, nothing is going right and I don't know what to do and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, we all have that sort of imposter syndrome. You know, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing? What's my purpose in life? There's a guy out there by the name of Ed Milet, who's an entrepreneur, really interesting guy. And he talks about the 4 types of people in the world. And the first group he talks about are the unmotivated. And he believes that's the vast majority of people you will encounter in your life. Second group he talks about are the motivated. And he said it's kind of a carrot and stick approach to life. If I do this, I will get that. He said it's kind of low level, but it works for a lot of people to have a great life. The third group he talks about are the inspirational people. The word inspiration coming from 2 words, in spirit. So if you're an inspirational person, you are moving people with your energy. Then the last one talks about are the aspirational people, where people aspire to be like you. And depending on who I'm talking to and stuff like that, a lot of times I tell that story and then it's always show of hands. All right, how many people are unmotivated? And nobody raises their hand. You know, nobody ever feels that they are unmotivated in their life. But if you believe Milet, the vast majority of people are. So I always try to encourage people. There's a great line in the book, Farewell to Arms, written by Ernest Hemingway. And it goes like this: life breaks everyone. And afterward, many are stronger at the broken places. So I always tell people, use that adversity, use that struggle that you're doing, because it's going to break you. Life is always going to break you. It's going to beat you to your knees. But the clue or what separates people from successful people from people who don't do anything with their lives are the fact that those people are resilient. Those people can stand up and continue to move forward. Just like when you break your arm, they put it in a cast. Where that break was is stronger than the rest of your arm. So if you look at life like that, I think you get to a point where it's like, yeah, things are going to happen to me. You know, no life is perfect. You know that. I mean, you're an attorney. You deal with people in crisis all the time. No life is perfect, but you can use that adversity to move you forward and be successful in your life.
And it's funny, I had a guest on the show a couple months ago named Mark Noodleberg, and Mark and I, we spoke about one of the things where you don't learn from winning, you learn from losing, right? If you go and you do the same thing, and we'll talk basketball, right? You go and you play and you win every game and easy and blah, 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 no problem. But if you lose, then you go back and you're like, all right, why did we lose? We allowed this point guard to score all these points on us. Why didn't we cover her better? Why didn't we switch to a zone? Why don't we do a pick and roll? Why don't we do, you know, all of this? And you learn, and you won't get beat by that same thing. Where you get beat and where you become not a failure, but less successful. I don't want to say you're a failure, but less successful is when you don't learn from your mistakes, right? How many times, you know, I remember growing up as a kid when my grandmother started having vision problems. She walked, we had wood floors all throughout the house, and there was a step, and she couldn't see it because her depth perception was off. So she stepped and she fell down the one step. Thank God she was okay. Everything was good and all this. She learned that whenever she was in my house in that spot, she would now touch the wall and use the wall as a guidance. I learned that someone with depth perception couldn't see it. So I took a sticker, fluorescent orange, so that anytime we had people over, I would put the sticker down so that people could see. So as long as you learn from your mistakes and learn from your losses, that's the only way you learn. You're not going to learn from your wins. Yes, you might learn from your win. Hey, if I do A, B, and C, I'm going to win. But what happens when you do A, B, and C and you lose? Now you need to come up with a D. And I think that's where innovation and invention comes from. One of my favorite movies, National Treasure. And Nicolas Cage has a line in there where it's like, Thomas Edison tried, I think, 2,000 or 10,000 light bulbs. And he didn't look at it as 10,000 failures. He looked at it as 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And I think we lose as society. We've lost that thought process, right? If I text you and you don't write back immediately, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But that's not how it is, because I could text you and you could be on this show and you're not going to respond until it's over in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. I think society is what can you do for me now? Why isn't this done right this second? Where is everything? Why isn't, and that's where our society is. And sometimes you have to take a step back, take a deep breath.
Okay. You do. You're absolutely right. And I love the quote by Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world, who said, I spent 8 years learning how to run 9 seconds. And he said, people give up on their dreams, their hopes after 2 months. So, understand you always have to get better. You always, you should always look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day before you go to bed. Am I better today than I was yesterday? And it's kind of the old joke, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. Right. Why try to, I'm going to get better at this. What does that mean? What if you got 1% better every single day? At the end of 30 days,
just put that in a note just now to a college coach that said, I can't wait to come and show you how I get 1% better every day. If that is your goal, I used to want to do 2, not 1, but 2 selfless things every day. And I used to give out 2 scratch-off lottery tickets with a quarter taped to it. And I would hand it to just random stranger. Say, here, you can't lose. And they look at me. What do you mean? You can't lose. Right. Well, why can't I lose? Well, if you scratch off and it's a loser ticket, I'm letting you keep the quarter. So you won, right? You're 25 cents ahead. And that's something that my kids started doing and my parents started, and we all just go out and buy lottery tickets and hand them out. Now, I found that it was more benefiting me and made me feel good, and that's not the purpose. So I'm doing different things now, but that's about it. The other thing is that you mentioned that, and let's talk about that as an athlete, that we train as athletes, and my son and you and the girls that you coach, right? You train, I don't know, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. You watch film, you watch tape. So it's a full-time job. And it's all of that for what? 1 game. So you put in 10, 15 hours of training per game, and then you're only playing for 1 hour. That lets you know that, hey, if I want the raise, what do I need to do to get the raise? I need to work my tush off. Hey, I want a promotion. What do you got to do for it? You got to work your tush off. So it's the things that go into the big show that I think people miss out on, right? They see you here, they see me here. They're like, oh, they're on a podcast, simple. Well, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, the audio, the technical, the flyers, and people forget that. And it's not like, all of a sudden we're instant successes because we're on this podcast. Look at all the time and effort that went in. And I think that's the message that we need to get to people, right? You may fail and you may fall. It's how you get up is what's important.
It is. And I love the quote from Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, who said, I never lose. I either learn or I win. So, it's kind of like you're saying, even if you lose, what did you learn from that? Right. You're not a failure unless you refuse to learn from the losses that you've had in your life. So understand that. And I love there's another quote. I'm just throwing quotes at you. I apologize.
Go for it. I
There's
love them. I'm going to want you to repeat the Nelson Mandela one because that one hit home. So
Yeah.
let's hear the other one. And then
the other one's from Jerry Rice, Hall of Famer, played for the San Francisco 49ers. And Rice said, "Today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't." And I really love that. I mean, it's like, are you willing to do that? I mean, our daughter went to the Air Force Academy to play basketball. And I think back on all those summer days, in the gyms where she's putting up thousands and thousands and thousands of shots. And we used to talk about this. It was like, it was a rec center. It wasn't like it was some private club. It was, just a city rec center. And we're shooting there. And it's 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. And we're like, where is everybody? Where's everybody else who you're going to play against next year? They're sleeping in. They're doing the things that, this is comfortable and stuff like that. You're doing the hard things. The way you get better in life is you do hard things. There's a great YouTube video that Carol Lawson, the women's basketball coach at Duke, has out there about, we always think life's going to get easier. I'm a freshman in college, but once I get through my freshman year, life's going to get easier. Or I'm a freshman on the basketball team. Once I'm an upperclassman, life is going to get easier. And her point is, life never gets easier. You handle hard better. You get better at handling hard things. But you do that by doing those hard things.
Yep. And I will say to anybody who's listening who is in law school or thinking about law school, if you can make it past year one, it will get easier. Or as Terry said, you will get stronger and you will know how to do it. So first year of law school kicked my butt like nothing ever in my life academically. Kicked my butt. I never knew how to study, how to write, how to do more. Kicked my butt. And my grades were average, right? I got a little above average in some class, but average. Second year, I continued to work just as hard and my grades skyrocketed, as opposed to my peers who they did very well in their first year and they leveled out. So all of a sudden, my trajectory in law school was like a rocket ship. I took off. I graduated with honors. I was cum laude, but I didn't start that way. And a lot of my friends, what they did is they shot up to here and then they plateaued, which, look, everybody is successful. Everybody did their own thing. Everybody's happy, but don't give up. Don't let that adversity, don't let, the roadblocks that are put up, look at life as speed bumps. You're going to hit the speed bump and then you're going to keep on rocking. And after you go over the speed bump, depending on the car, your car might go like this, but it's going to settle down. Go with it. Trust the process and the journey. But I loved your Nelson Mandela quote. Can you say it again for the listeners? Because that was so important and hit home.
Yeah, the quote is basically, he used to say, "I never lose. I either learn or I win." And if you look at life, I mean, it's a very powerful quote. We're all going to lose on the scoreboard, but that doesn't make you a loser unless you don't learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn.
And that's it. And look, my son, in the last game that he played in his high school tournament this year, that the team didn't win, but my son had a phenomenal game. And he came to me afterwards and he's like, "Dad, I played my heart out." And I'm like, it showed. And coaches and fathers and mothers and teammates, they all came up to him and said, "You played your heart out." They lost, but he played his heart out and he felt he left everything he had on the field. And that's the most important thing. When you could look back at something, win, lose, crappy situation, great situation, and you say, "I gave it my all," then you don't ask for much more than that, right? It's when you show up only half effort that you lose, and you lose before you even show up. It was funny because I was working with a young lady who wanted to be a professional figure skater, and you were telling the story about your daughter and all of this, and I said to her, I'm like, "I would love to chat with you," and she's like, "Okay, come see me at 4. Okay. And at the ice rink. Okay. So I look at the ice rink and, 4 o'clock, it was like open skate for whatever it was. But at 4 a.m., it was reserved skating. And I didn't want to look like a fool. I'm like, you know what? I'll bet you she means 4 a.m. I woke myself up, got it, whatever. Went and made hot chocolate from home, brought 2 warm hot chocolates, not knowing if there was a concession stand that was going to be open. And sure enough, at 4 o'clock in the morning, she just finished her session. And she's like, I've been here since 2:30. I'm like, that's dedication. So now what? She's like, I shower, I do some homework, I study, I go to school, and then I go home, I work out, I do what I got to do. I'm in bed sleeping by 9 so I can be at the skating rink at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now that was dedication.
That is.
And that's it. And you don't have to be an athlete to do that, right? You could be a normal human being that I want to get ahead. I want to, do this. The early bird gets the worm and all that. So we are unfortunately almost at the end of our time here. You gave us a lot of quotes, and usually I end my show with the hardest question. So here's the hardest question that I have for you. What is your favorite quote from either a book, a movie, or whatever it is? Your favorite quote and what it means to you.
Sure. And it's not a hard question for me, because
Good.
and the thing I love about that is when I was growing up, the premier college basketball team in the country was UCLA. John Wooden was their coach, probably one of the greatest college coaches of all time. And Wooden had a quote about success. Now, understand that, like I said, this guy had more hardware, had more wins at the time than Bobby Knight, than Mike Krzyzewski, than anything. And here was his definition of success. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. It says nothing about winning. It says nothing about winning championships or being great or anything like that. Did you do your best? I mean, if you're taking an English class, kind of like you said before, if you're taking an English class and you're working your butt off and you get a C, you're probably successful. Versus you're taking an English class and I didn't work very hard and I got an A. Were you successful? Probably not, because you didn't give it everything you had.
Right. And you might be successful on paper, but at the end, that person that got the C is probably learning from that C and probably went and spoke to their teacher and their professor and everybody else. Why did I get the C? And they learn. Look, I do that with both my kids when they're in school. Good grade or bad grade. You go in and you find out from the professor what you did right and what you did wrong. And that's the important thing. Don't only go and say to your professor, hey, I got to see what can I do to get a better grade. You go in there at the same time. Hey, I got an A. I did really well. I just want to make sure I understood, where I slipped up and what I did right. And that's important stuff. So Terry Tucker is here, international speaker and author. Go find his book. Go find the only other guy on the planet like me that has an AOL account. Check out Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. And check him out. And I think it was Terry Tucker, motivationalcheck.com. Motivationalcheck.com and motivationalcheck@AOL.com. Terry Tucker, phenomenal guest, phenomenal story. I thank you for being here. Stay safe, stay well, enjoy, and we'll be speaking again soon. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Terry, for being here. Thank you for the Going Bold Network for allowing us to speak here today. And I wish you all a happy, safe, and great rest of the week.